Welcome to the channel, ladies and gentlemen. Kill, this is the night we will be knee deep. We will be literally in the heart of darkness. We're going to be talking about A Nightmare on Elm Street from 2010, the infamous or famous remake starring the great, and we both agree with this, the great Jackie Earl Haley, and also Rooney Mara, and let's see, Katie Cassidy as well, and also Kyle Gallner. So some actual great talent in this movie, but very divisive film. A blanket hello to everyone in the chat. Thank you guys for you gotta love this. Strange Monkey. He's always ready. The title of this video sums up everything about this movie. Oh my god. Jason's in the chat too. What's going on? Like Knight said on his morning live stream, this is going to be an interesting one. Yeah, it is. I really do think so. Brandon's in the chat. What's up, Brandon? Saying this remake isn't that bad. Okay. All right. The general's in the chat. What's going on to Val? Thanks for hanging out with us. Why Not Ben is in the chat as well. Our newest, or one of our newest Patreon members. Thank you so much for hanging out with us, man. This is going to be a lot of fun. James is here, and the honorary member himself, the people's champion, Eric's in the chat saying, "Oh Lord, here we go. You, buckle up, baby." Polar's in the chat. What's going on, Polar?
Hey.
And Ronan's in the chat. Ronan's back. All right. Good to see you. Good to see you. Eric saying, if you hate it, God bless you, but I'm already tired. Prepping for the worst horror movie ever comments. Definitely not the worst of all time. So I can throw that out there right now. And Eric knows because we watch a lot of tough horror movies. Kill, let's do a quick take and get going on this thing. The remake, baby. We've talked about this before. What do you got?
You know, it does some things good. I wouldn't say really good, but then it does some things that's just kind of missed opportunities. And like you said earlier, we love Jackie Earl. But yeah, and I think I've said this before, so I'm just gonna get this out of the way. I do not like the look of Freddy. I don't like the facial makeup. Kind of looks feline, a little feline to me, but that's just my taste.
Now, and hold on one second, because some of that I didn't hear. It didn't come out too clearly, but I heard most of what you were saying. There it is right there. There it is right there. Can you hear me okay, Kill?
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay, because it sounds really like robotic. For you guys in the chat, let us know if you can hear us okay. Mayanne is also in the chat. What's going on? Good to see you as well. And Ronan saying, I don't mind this remake except no Robert Englund. Yeah. Yeah. And let's see. Polar saying I can hear you just fine. Okay, so you can hear both of us just fine, right? Okay.
Cool.
Wow. It doesn't sound good on my end. Radioactive Cosmic Rays, what's going on in the chat? All right. Now for me as well, I think that I think this remake has some interesting concepts that they were trying to do, things that they were trying to achieve. You got to remember where it's coming from, off of things like Freddy's Dead, and of course with Wes Craven's New Nightmare, that took things in a really, really cool direction, but you couldn't follow up with that necessarily. So it's just interesting, and this was also after Freddy versus Jason, so a lot of cool stuff. We'll finish talking about it in a minute. Give folks a couple seconds to get finished getting set up. So for you guys in the chat, for you guys watching the replay, sit back, relax. You know what time it is. There it is. All right. Okay, let's get on to this thing, man. The opening of this film starts very interestingly. They didn't necessarily follow the exact same beats of the original. What do you think about the beginning, how it started off, Kill?
Well, it's funny. I know they have to do something different, and
Yeah.
they have to kind of tread their own path. So it was just very interesting, essentially starting in the diner with the young man, and he's kind of, asleep, and he's kind of, going through his nightmare and so forth.
Mhm. Right.
So it was interesting because once again, when I remember when I first watched this, I was like, are we following, this young man?
Right.
Is he our protagonist, or is he literally just going to be the first victim?
Mhm.
And this poor kid, yeah, he is the first victim. He does not have a lot
This
of screen time.
As soon as you see that the diner, they're taking a page out of the Halloween movies with hospitals. It's like, this is the emptiest diner of all time. You gotta
Yeah,
get out of there, bro.
yeah, yeah.
You gotta get out of there. Um, it was interesting though, because right off the bat, you had this nightmare, and it started off okay to me, but, one thing I noticed, and we're gonna kinda go back and forth on this, Kill, but
Mhm.
the one thing I noticed right from the beginning is in this iteration of Freddy, which I understand they were trying to do some new things, but it was very much like, a quick boom, and like a lot of jump scare type of stuff, going on, which is a lot different. What did you think about that tactic? And because I think it was intentional, you know?
Oh yeah, yeah, it's definitely
Yeah.
well, and it's kind of hard to go from some of the movies we've talked about in the prior weeks, not last week because last week was the new Nightmare,
Mhm.
but essentially how fantastical Freddy
Right.
became.
Right.
Whereas this, he's straight up like a slasher.
Mhm.
He's not going to do all of the pomp and circumstance. He's not going to be on a witch's broom. He's not going to turn you into a roach and things of that
Mhm.
nature. So yeah, they really intentionally stripped it back, and I like it. I like it.
Mhm.
I'm not the biggest fan of all the jump scares. I feel sometimes they can be a little cheap. Um,
Yeah.
but they definitely made him creepy in this one,
Mhm. Oh,
whether you like that or not.
creepy
Yeah.
is definitely the word to use, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, like I was like, is he terrifying? No, he's just very creepy. And
Mhm.
Jackie Earl, he's not the biggest man.
Right.
His body type is very, kind of wiry. He's that is a okay.
What, man?
It looks like he's saying cheese. He looks he did that on purpose. Like
What?
guys, Knight intentionally tries to find some of the funniest screenshots of the things
Come
we're talking
on, man, it's all
about. But yeah, I mean, he's very creepy in this. And I think the jump scares, I actually kind of think they work for this version of what they're trying to
Mhm.
do.
Yeah, yeah, interesting stuff, man. Now, in that diner scene, we're introduced to Chris, played by Katie Cassidy, who was the girlfriend, or at least I think they were, dating or whatever. And so when Freddy is attacking him in the dream world, it was kind of cool because they showed him fighting Freddy, and then of course no one was there by everyone else's, perspective, so it looked like he basically killed himself. And as usual in these Elm Street movies, the one thing that has stayed consistent is we have a funeral scene. And we also got introduced to Nancy. We also got introduced to Quentin, who they would play bigger roles, obviously as the film goes on. But this was a lot different in the setup, which I think I think it was good in one way, but in the other way, it was kind of not as good because in the original, obviously, we go from Tina, who gets eventually killed first, but you thought you were following her, and then it goes right into Heather Langenkamp. But that transition was I don't know, what was it, maybe about 15 minutes into the movie. This one was almost like it was almost like a full 40 minutes, 35 minutes or so
Yeah.
before it really got quote unquote handed off to Nancy. And at that by that point, it was kind of like, Um, but anyways, you have those folks as your main leads. They introduce the parents, and of course, you got people like Connie Britton, who's Nancy's mother, and of course, who's in there, Kill. You know,
Clancy.
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 Listen, this is what Clancy Brown thought of this movie. Look at that. Look, that's what he thought. He is like, what is going on? No, but we love Clancy.
Yeah,
What
we
did
do.
you think about the storyline at this point? Because Chris, who's our lead, played by Katie Cassidy, is confused because she said that she heard him say, you're not real, you're not real. So now, it's kind of about her perspective. What did you think about her character? And of course, her opening nightmare, which we showed in the opening as well.
I love Katie Cassidy. Shouts out to Arrow.
Hmm.
She's a great actress, and I like
Yeah.
how they kind of do the bait and switch again on us. Because we're a traditional horror film, she would be our protagonist.
Right. Right.
If this was like Final Destination, okay, we're following her.
Hmm.
Scream, we're following her. But we don't. But the thing that's very interesting, and I was thinking the same thing that you were just saying on how they kind of shuffle things around in comparison to the original Nightmare on
Hmm.
Elm Street. Um, Katie, what I liked about her character is she's she's very light in comparison to this version of Nancy.
Right.
This
Yeah,
version
that's a
of
good way to word it.
Nancy, she has a little bit more edge to her, which is fine, going with
Hmm.
the times. And so you kind of have these two type of, strong women in their own right. So it was really interesting to see, Katie Cassidy's character and Nancy and the whole dynamic of how these high school friends all kind of link together and so forth.
Right.
And once again, just like you were saying, Nightmare on Elm Street, you always have the diner scenes. You always got those classroom scenes, man. Guys, stop falling
Yes.
asleep in class, or you're
Yeah.
gonna have a creepy
Yep.
Frederick Krueger the third that's
Yep.
gonna be
Frederick
scratching
Allen
on,
Krueger.
yeah, that's gonna be scratching on the boards and like, you really shouldn't go to sleep in class. It's like,
You really shouldn't sleep in class. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, very creepy stuff. Very
Yeah.
creepy. Yeah.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. Real quick too in the chat, just to kind of catch up with these guys. Jamie's in the chat. What's going on, Jamie? And we also got Sunrise in the chat. Um, let's see. We got a couple of the people that have jumped into a big hello to everyone. Phil's creepy videos in the chat. What's up, Phil? What's up? What's up? Hope you're doing good. Um, let's see. And I think I'm a little caught up. Val, thank you for putting up the link to our Patreon. So if you are interested in supporting the channel and having exclusive content and watch parties, this is the link to follow. Thank you very much, Val. I appreciate that. Um, Kill, I know that you're pressed for time tonight, so I want to let's get to the meat and potatoes. What did you think of the makeup for Freddy? We know that we enjoyed Jackie Earl Haley's performance as far as what he brought to the character. What did you think of the makeup?
Well, I always want to give credit when people try to do different things.
Yes,
When
yes,
creatives try to do different things. And I truly feel they tried to do a more authentic burn victim makeup
yes, they did.
here. But for me, it's just something off-putting about it.
Hmm.
And kind of like I said earlier, looks almost feline cattish to me.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, but I love Jackie Earl and the creepiness he conveys, the cadence of how he speaks,
Yeah,
the movement of the finger blades and the
yeah.
gloves, and so forth. And just kind of like I said, he's a wiry guy, and the way he kind of moves and so forth.
Hmm.
So he does a lot of he gives a lot of information just with his body movements
Yeah.
and so forth. So his portrayal as this creepy, small framed version of Freddy,
Hmm.
I like it. I like it. But for
Hmm.
me, that makeup, I am just not a fan of it, especially coming off of New Nightmare, where I think to me,
And
less
Freddy versus Jason.
yeah, and Freddy versus Jason. But I think for me, the New Nightmare makeup, that's my favorite look.
Yeah.
Now, granted, people say, "Oh, that wasn't really Freddy. That was Demon Freddy." Yeah, 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 yeah.
Right.
Okay, but the facial makeup of that, I just really love the way it looked. So
Yeah. Val said just can't get past Kelly from the original Bad News Bears as Freddy. Well, if you've seen Watchmen, which I know a lot of folks may not have seen that would show why he would make a good Freddy. I mean, obviously, this is years and years and years, a lifetime after Bad News Bears. But Jackie Earl Haley is a really good actor who has a lot of like gravitas. You know what I mean?
mhm.
And especially in his performance as Rorschach, which is why we always have that in my intro because we love Rorschach. He had that type of commanding presence underneath of a mask a lot of for most of the movie. So I think he did a great job in it, but I agree, Kill. I think the makeup just it didn't work,
Yeah.
and it just kind of I don't even know if the word off-putting is the way I want to use it. It just didn't look good enough. He
Yeah.
looked great in a lot of scenes. I love like these scenes here. I love the effect with the sparks from the glove and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Um, but I also think that the other thing I had an issue with the movie is that the kills and the nightmare sequences themselves, they seemed just so like blah. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And there were moments where they obviously, played on riffing off of the first movie, and we know specifically those moments where the CGI was just ridiculous. This being one of the biggest offenders, but also with Chris's death scene, which is a play on Tina's death scene, that scene was nowhere near as effective as the original, nor was it as effective as New Nightmare when they did their own play on Tina's death, as far as being up on the wall and the ceiling and stuff.
Mhm.
It just looked really weird because they had Katie Cassidy, like it looked like she was kind of flying around, and it's like, okay, well, what's going on? So I just think that they had multiple missteps. They wanted to make Freddy darker, so they kind of went to the creepy road. You know what I'm saying? With the whole
Yeah.
idea of him being, a pedophile, which originally was the idea that Wes had for the original movie, and they kind of shied away from that, and he became a child killer. But I just don't think that worked in this movie. It was creepy for sure, but it wasn't scary.
Yes.
And I'm not saying that it has to be scary to have any merit, but like the nightmare sequences, none of them. Katie Cassidy's sequence in the school, that was pretty cool. And of course the pharmacy was the best moment, but it was more so because it was cool, and not scary, and not even a lot of tension. It was just more that it was cool, that idea of the whole micro naps, which they really didn't get into more, and I think they should have, because that was
Yes.
a really good idea. What did you think about the nightmare sequences, or any of the kills?
You Night, I swear we must be related. You're reading my mind, man. Because the same way I was saying how this one is not as fantastical.
Hmm.
In this, it's really a lot of, all right, I'm just gonna cut you. I'm gonna cut you.
Right.
I'm gonna stab you real quick, and that's gonna
Hmm.
be it.
Hmm.
I think of the I guess it was the kill after Katie Cassidy with I forget the young
Her
man.
boyfriend in jail. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And
Basically playing the Rod part.
yes. And
Yeah.
Freddy's stalking him, and he
Hmm.
starts crying, and he's all like on like right at him. And he's like, "What are you crying for? I
I
haven't even
haven't even
cut you
cut you
yet."
yet.
And essentially he kind of tells him, "Oh, I can cut you, and you'll still stay alive for 7 minutes, and oh, we still got 6 minutes." So it's creepy.
Right.
It works in the creepy factor, and
Hmm.
he clearly takes joy in killing and slicing at these kids.
Right.
But what you were saying with the whole pedo angle, that is less creepy, and it makes us feel more icky.
Hmm. Hmm.
And
Yeah.
that's really the only word I can use, because it makes me feel icky,
Yeah.
because I don't root for Freddy in any way, shape, or form.
Hmm.
But at
Yeah.
least in the other movies, when I looked at him, it was less of an icky feeling of laughing at him doing certain things, or like, oh,
Right.
that was a really good kill. Whereas this,
Right.
Jackie Earl is such a good actor that he
Yeah.
is able to make me feel ick. Like,
Yeah.
dude, like, yeah,
We still got 5 minutes left to play.
yeah, or even worse when he's like, he's talking to, like, oh, you're still as pretty as you were then. It's like, oh no, no, this is wrong. And then of course, as the movie goes, you learn more and more about the back history that we all are privy to. But now this is their new
Right.
interpretation with the kids like, hey mom, did me and this person know each other as kids? I see this picture at the funeral. We're in elementary school. What's up with that? And Connie Britton, she's a great actress. And to see her like, nope, I have no idea what's up with that. Oh, let me go in this room and call Clancy. Hey, it's like, wow, all right. you know,
There he is. There
there
he
he
is.
is.
He's just
He's
waiting,
he's
man.
he's
Clancy
he's wait,
Brown.
he's waiting for John Wick. He's waiting for Wick.
Right, right. Um, but I think the other thing for me is that, this movie, it did some things a little bit differently for sure. And another thing that it did was the way that Nancy was characterized. Obviously she was introverted, and very shy and withdrawn and so forth, which was, that was fine. It just made it a little bit more difficult to root for, and plus you didn't have a lot of scenes with her just kind of, you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
um because you're following her. Now I will say, this time when I watched it, I really did enjoy Kyle's character of Quentin. And I enjoyed his character probably a lot more than I usually have. And I think it was kind of cool, that they were trying to figure out this whole thing together. They're trying to figure out the mystery, because at this point, they've got multiple friends that have died, and they know that it's about this whole thing about their nightmares. So I really did like Quentin's character in this, which is basically the same role that Johnny Depp had in the original as Glenn. But it was cool because they were really investing it, and working together and so forth. But another scene that I thought was not as well done was the bathtub scene. I don't think that was as effective as the original. Um, what do you think of the bathtub scene?
It's funny. I kind of go back and forth on it. I agreed that I did not like it as well as the
Hmm.
original, but I wonder, do I have that thought because I've seen the original?
Hmm.
I would love to know someone, and if any of you guys are in the chat, if you've experienced this movie, the remake first before
Hmm.
the original, I'd love to know your opinion on it. But I didn't think it hit like it did in the original.
Yeah.
Because I think also with the original there was a supreme air of mystery because you barely saw Freddy,
Right.
it's like a great movie like Jaws. You're afraid of what you don't see in the darkness,
Hmm.
and then
Yeah.
when you do see him, he's still in so much shadow and barely talks in the original, that your
Yeah.
brain makes up the rest of it. Makes it even scary. This
Right.
version, they got Jackie Earl. He was on the screen within the first, like 4 minutes.
Yeah.
The first diner nightmare, and it's like, whoa, all right.
Yeah.
He's front
Good
and
point.
center, and they're
Yeah.
proud of it. Like, we're showing him. We're not gonna, there are gonna be some scenes where he's in shadow for the
Hmm.
effect and the scare. But no, we're
Right.
proud of this makeup. He's gonna be here front and center being creepy. So it's like,
Right.
all right.
Yeah, I mean, and of course, again, this is what, the ninth movie in the franchise, so there's going to be diminishing returns as far as creativity. But I just think that a lot of the choices that they originally wanted to do something similar that Friday did with their reboot, where Friday combined multiple movies and so forth. And they were going to do that at first, and then they scrapped that idea and they just said, well, let's just riff off of Wes's movie and try to make Freddy darker and creepier. That's why they went with the pedo route. And in other words, what I'm saying, there was a lot of issues with the writing of the movie early on. multiple drafts. They were also taking parts from, the middle of the movie and changing up the dialogue, putting it in the beginning and so forth. One of the writers had famously said something to the effect of, "That's not how you do this," because what you take from one scene further into the movie, now that's going to be affected. So I think that there was a lot of stuff behind the scenes that really made a big difference in as far as the product that we eventually got. And it shows, it really,
Mhm.
really shows in the movie, because there's some great ideas, but there's also some things that are, just tough, man. It's really, really tough.
Yeah.
um Kill, I know you got to get ready to get going. Any final thoughts that you want to throw out on the remake? I know we kind of gone all over the place, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the final thing I'll say is, I once again I appreciate when these creatives try to do something different, and especially
Yeah.
with Freddy, they could have just tried to keep going to the same well, and with diminishing returns, but
Mm-hmm.
they said, hey, let's try to do a reboot. Let's make them darker. Let's make them more icky,
Mm-hmm.
and more menacing and less funny,
Yeah.
and they did do that, but like I said earlier, where they did things, pretty well, there were certain things that were such missed opportunities, like the
Yeah.
makeup, maybe not like making him so icky, making the
Mm-hmm.
kills not as fantastical, but give me something a little
Right.
bit more than just I'm gonna just put my claw hand through you, and that's
Right.
it,
Yeah.
or Katie Cassidy, she's floating in the air. We're
Mm-hmm.
just gonna rip down the front, and that's it. Now you're dead.
Right. Yeah, man.
So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, man, I'll let you get ready to get out of here, man. But I obviously appreciate talking about this. I'll wrap this up in a little bit. But yeah, man, it's crazy. The movie had some good things. I mean, look at the CGI here, man. Why?
They
Tell me
tried,
why.
man. They tried.
Well, I mean, they try your boy Chewy from the Friday remake as well, or reboot, whatever we want to call it. Chewy
Yeah.
up in there. But anyways, um, next time we talk about this stuff, man, we're gonna be doing our rankings of the entire franchise. So yeah, it'll be really, really cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, hey, take it easy, and I'll catch up with you soon.
All right, guys. Take it
All right,
easy.
man.
Peace.
All right. See ya. And so for you guys in the chat, just to catch up with you guys, we got Carrie jumped in, popping in from work. Kyle Gallner is the best character in my opinion. Yeah, yeah. The story of Freddy went to a dark route that made me uncomfortable. Yeah, absolutely. And I do think that I was saying that earlier is I think that Kyle's character of Quentin, I really enjoyed him a lot more, um, in this movie than I had in previous viewings. And I think part of that too is because, and I've talked about this before when we've talked about the remake, I was just really so disappointed in the way they chose to present Nancy. Again, it was a choice that I think it just made it hard to root for her. I mean, you could root for her, but I mean, just really be behind her. A couple good scenes, like the pharmacy scene, but I think Katie Cassidy, the way that she portrayed Chris, that type of characterization, I think would have been a better way to have Nancy, because that's close to what Nancy is. Nancy Thompson is one of the greatest final girls in horror movie history. So I'm so shocked that they made that particular misstep. I really am. Let's see. And I know I'm way behind with you guys, but see, Ron's in the chat. What's up? I have yet to watch the remake. Yeah, you're not really missing a lot. Carrie saying Rooney was too monotone for me. I actually like Katie Cassidy a lot more. Yeah, and I was just saying that too. And I think I think a lot of people kind of look at it that way. It is what it is, though. I will say, and I wanted to get to the pharmacy scene as well. I do think that the pharmacy scene was really, really cool. I like the way it was shot. I again, and I think part of that too was because you had Kyle involved, and they were trying to figure a way to stay awake, because he's trying to get more medication, and she's in the car waiting for him, and it starts to go through the whole micro nap thing where she kind of blanks out for a moment, and of course Freddy's right there, and of course she there's that scene where she uses the cigarette lighter to burn her arm so she could wake up, and then she goes into the pharmacy, and it was a really really cool scene. The way that it was shot, one of the better moments I think in the film. And I think it was also really cool just seeing Freddy, played by Jackie, in that moment. I think it was really really cool. Um, but for you guys in the chat, definitely let us know, some of your other thoughts on the movie. I know there's a lot of folks that have a lot of issues with it. It's not the worst movie of all time. It's not even the worst remake of all time. It's not even, well, arguably enough. We'll be talking about the rankings of the films, but it has its moments, and it has, some good performances in and of themselves, like Jackie Earl Haley. I just think that in trying to make him creepy or darker, they kind of went the creepy way. I just think it kind of, um, it just, I don't think it worked enough. I think the way that they characterized Freddy in A New Nightmare and the way he was in the original, and even in two, and to some degree in three, I think that's the perfect version of Freddy. He's evil. He might have a line here and there that kind of makes you like, oh, okay. But I think that's the best version of Freddy. You know, Man saying you guys are gonna make me want to watch these movies again. There's a lot of great movies in the franchise. Yeah, yeah. Brandon saying that the director Samuel Bayer didn't even want to direct the film. Michael Bay coerced him into it. Yeah, um, and that's another thing too. To me, I think it was a big thing where they saw what had happened with the TCM remake. You had the Halloween, Rob Zombie's Halloween. You had the Friday remake that came out. So I think they wanted to kind of ride that wave and kind of hurried into things, and they just didn't cross all their T's and dot their I's. It's really that's the meat and potatoes of it. Ronan saying, love you all, miss you all. Hey, we do too, man. Really missed the watch party. See you guys next time. Yeah, absolutely. Good to see you here, though, man. Good to see you here. Have a good night. Julie's in the chat. I actually like the remake, but it did suffer from lazy CGI and some poorly copied death scenes. Yeah, I don't think there's not a single scene that it referenced that I think it outdid the original on. Maybe for the exception of near the end of the movie, instead of it being the sticky stairs, it's basically the hallway that Nancy is sinking into. I think that particular scene looked pretty good in comparison to in the original when she was trying to go up the stairs in the third act, and she was sinking into the stairs, the sticky stairs. But yeah, I just think that the CGI, there were poor choices with the CGI, and they just couldn't overcome those. They really couldn't. Telling the backstory of Freddy, um, it was okay. But one thing that was kind of interesting to me is that they kind of played around with the idea of, well, could he actually be innocent of you know, these accusations? And so, yeah, I don't know. It was just an odd choice. I didn't have anything invested. Um, just didn't have anything invested. The final act, there was a couple of moments because they go to the school. They basically find out, Quentin and Nancy find out that the two of them, as well as Chris and all these kids that have been killed in the movie, and it's only been a handful, but they all were in the same school that Freddie was at, and that's when he was, basically being a pedophile and so forth. But the finale and that final confrontation that Nancy had with Freddie, with Quentin kind of helping a little bit, it didn't really stand out at all. It's very forgettable. Um, and again, I think this movie, yeah, yeah, yeah. Brandon also saying, yeah, same thing with Connie Britton as the mother. She wasn't as interesting as Marge in the original. You know, she was a drunk. She was trying to hide the truth. When she told Nancy about what happened with Freddie down in the basement, and pulled out the glove and stuff. That was a really good scene. And she she really commanded those scenes. And Connie Britton is a great actress, but they didn't really give her anything to do. They didn't give Clancy Brown anything to do, which was crazy. Eric saying the better final kill effect with the mom here than the blow up doll in the original. Well, to a degree, and again, and Eric, you know this. I personally, um, I don't have any particular hate for the end of the original. I know it looks a little cheesy because it is a doll. But for the longest time, when I watched that growing up, I just kind of took it as a part of the dream per se. But it's definitely um, subpar compared to everything else that they had done in the film. Um, but the thing about the ending, it was cool as far as the idea of it, that he's in the reflection and that he kills Connie Britton and then brings her into the mirror. I thought that that was really, really cool. But the CGI for it, I don't think that the CGI for it was very good. But it is what it is. It is what it is. But yeah, I mean that might be one moment where again the effects is it's interesting. You got a blow up doll that looks fake. Of course, it's a quick moment, so it's not like we live in the age where we can pause things so easily versus back then in 1984. So you've got the blow up doll and you've got some really bad CGI. Cool concept, but really bad CGI. So it's like, which one do we want? Um, let's see what else we've gotten here. Carrie saying the reason I like Freddy's because of Robert's angle and being scary and also having a dark sense of humor. I love the balance of the two. He was over the top. I loved that. Yeah, yeah. Skull Crusher in the chat saying I thought this remake was trying too much to be like the original, which I liked better. Yeah, I think that it's hard to say, guys. Anytime you have a remake, you're riding a fine line. You're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. The one thing you never want to do is to try to do something that's bit for bit a remake, like Psycho. That was just a really why do that? But you don't want to do something that is so different that it alienates your fan base or the audience. So it's tough. It's tough. M85. I cringed out loud doing the Wall Freddy scene at the movie theater. Yeah, that was bad, man. And I did see this in the theater when it came out because I was really excited. I had seen TCM and Halloween and Friday, and I was thinking I knew at some point that Nightmare would get a remake treatment, and I was really curious to see what they were going to do. And yeah, I wasn't out of the major horror franchises, out of the major remakes, this was my least favorite easily. So that's what it is, man. That's what it is. Um, but for you guys in the chat, definitely let us know some more of your thoughts as far as moments in the film that you had an issue with, but also if you have moments in the film that you did like. Again, there were some really interesting moments. There were some points where I think Freddie was characterized in a really cool way. More when he was in the shadow, I think those were more effective. Of course, that's what Freddie was like in the original movie. A lot of moments in the shadows. Again, I just think the way that they had Rooney portray Nancy, the way Nancy was written, I just wasn't on board with her character. I was more on board with Quentin, you know, and obviously you're supposed to be behind Nancy more so. Maybe what they were thinking is that this was going to be, the type of thing where Nancy and Quentin were both kind of like a team because it is kind of like a final girl, final guy, or final couple. Um, but it just didn't really work for me too much. The idea of the micro naps was really cool. They didn't really follow up on that, which was kind of a bummer. I really thought that that was a cool idea. Freddy was creepy in the worst way, so that also was kind of it was also kind of messed up. Val, thank you for putting a reminder. People leave a comment. Also, if you haven't hit the like button, please hit the like button. Also, if you are interested in becoming a Patreon member, we have put the link in the live chat. Enlightened Kid saying I did like the micro naps aspect. Me too. Me too. But they just didn't follow through with it enough. It really, really didn't. Quentin's transition in the pool to the dream was pretty dope. Um, yeah, it was okay. Again, this is a franchise that has been full of creative kills, creative nightmare sequences, and creative sets. And the thing about this movie was there was nothing that was really memorable. You had creepy classroom, you had the boiler room, which was nowhere near as creepy looking as in previous installments. The finale, there was nothing that was really there that really stood out. I'm just surprised that and I understand that they may have been thinking, well, we're not going to do big fantastical dreams. We're going to be a little bit more grounded like the original. But the thing about the original is you had such great set pieces. Tina's death, the alleyway, the confrontation with Nancy, Glenn's death. Freddy stalked them. He was creepy. Rod's death in the jail. When Nancy was in the nightmare and walking away from the jail and by that hedge, and she's like, "Is anyone there?" And then Robert, with his creepiness, I'm Freddy. So there were moments like that that were they just stand out, and I can name them just like that. And there weren't enough of those moments in this movie, which is too bad. It really, really is. Val, thank you for putting the link in for our Patreon. Much appreciated. Yeah, we'll be doing something on Sunday, looking to do a watch party, and also gonna have some special guests on the panel. So that should be a lot of fun. So, anyways, guys, that's pretty much what I have for the remake. A lot of uh, possibilities, but also a lot of missed opportunities. Definitely not the worst remake of all time. Definitely not the worst movie of all time. But I think that it fell under the weight of the franchise. I think it really fell under the weight of, what so many of the other movies do and the other choices that were made in previous movies. So I think that that's where it kind of fell short. So, anyways, that's about all we got. So we will be catching you guys later on. Leave us some comments. Let us know some more of your thoughts, and we'll catch you later. If you're watching this, if you're listening to this, you are the Night Watch. Peace.